Hey guys, welcome back to Adaptive Adventures. On this week's episode, I'll be discussing my take on the wheelchair accessibility and my overall experience at Magic Kingdom. Hey guys, just real quick before the video, I just want to let you know I'm not a Disney employee. I'm not being paid or sponsored by Disney. So all my insights and advice that I give you today are based purely on my own experiences that I've had when at Disney. So if you have any specific questions about accessibility within the parks, please contact Disney directly. So I have a list of all the rides I've been able to ride over at Magic Kingdom. But first, just wanted to talk a little bit about the park as a whole. So it's a pretty flat park except for a couple of different areas that I noticed when I was there. So one of those areas is Frontierland. There's a portion of it that's back kind of by the Seven Dwarfs mine train. That's a little bit of a steeper hill. So getting down to that, if you're uncomfortable with trying to keep yourself from slowing down if you're a manual wheelchair user like I am, or getting back up that hill, especially if you might have things in your hands, could prove to be a little bit difficult and you might not need to ask for help. There's also one part that I can't remember specifically where it is, but it's near the castle, and you kind of have to, there's a bridge that you can go up and over, and that part I remember being a little steep. Also, I remember I was trying to go down that part with food in my hands, so that was part of it. But besides that, the rest of the park's pretty flat. There are some parts that have like fake cobblestone, so to speak, but it was never bad enough that I needed to use my free wheel like I've had to use in other parts or other travels that I've been on. So that's the kind of the park in the whole, and now we can get into my list of the rides and what my experience has been with those. The first one I want to talk about is probably my favorite ride at Magic Kingdom, and that's Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean is like Disney classifies it as a water ride or a boat ride. So for this one in particular, you do have to transfer out of your chair, and it's a transfer down. So like the boats sit lower than the deck that you sit on or stand on. So you do have to get out of your chair, but they do have a transfer board available which can make that dip into the boat a little bit easier. So it looks kind of like a little step stool thing. So you can transfer off your chair onto that step stool, and then there's like 2 tiers down into the boat. So you don't have to, if you don't want to, you don't have to make the drop all the way from your wheelchair down into the boat, which could be, it's probably like maybe 2 feet, because if you're able-bodied and you're standing, you step down into the boat. So it can be a bit of a drop. So I've done both just to experience it. Like there's times where I just kind of throw my legs out and I'm able to lower myself into the boat. But just to see how it worked with that step stool, I did that once as well. And that's actually pretty smooth. And that they will have that available for you getting out of the boat as well. So a couple of things to note about Pirates of the Caribbean though, is the place where you get on the boat is different than the place where you get off the boat. So if you're a manual wheelchair user or a power chair user, they will, once you get off your chair or whatever mobility device you're using, they will take that away and they will bring it to the place where you then deboard at the end of the ride. Our most recent trip, we hadn't had this issue before, but our most recent trip, when we rode it, we had some issues where there was a decent delay in them getting my chair back to me at the end of the ride. So you have to be patient with them. They weren't being very proactive in helping me find out where my chair was or when it was going to be there. So that was a little bit frustrating, but all in all, we were always able to get the chair. And then even though they weren't doing that, they were never rushing us to get off the ride or whatever, except for maybe once they asked us like, well, can't he get up and just move so we can wait? Or they asked me to get into a manual, like one of their chairs, which looks like a hospital chair. But I always say no to that because it's not my chair. And in a transfer situation like that, it could be difficult. And I don't want to hurt myself doing something awkward. So I always just, like, you're totally within your rights and you shouldn't feel uncomfortable that if you don't want to transfer into a chair that you're not familiar with, wait for your equipment to arrive and then get back out of the boat there. Okay, so the next one we'll talk about then is the Seven Dwarfs mine train. Again, this is another one that you have to transfer out of your wheelchair. But with most of the roller coasters, and it's a roller coaster, most of the coasters at Magic Kingdom, they sit higher, so it's not a dip. It's not as much of a dip down into the car or whatever. And then in the train, or the train of cars for the coaster, there is one where the armrest, so to speak, kind of swings away. And that makes it a lot easier to transfer in because you're not trying to go up and over an armrest to get in. So that swings away, and then you can make almost a direct transfer onto the seat, and then it closes again, and then like the safety bar comes down. So that one's really nice and a pretty easy transfer. And then that transfer cart is the last one in the train, and it's a pretty fun place to ride too because it like that last train is I don't know, they say is a little more like crazy, so to speak. But that one's a fun one and an easier transfer. Also with that, your chair stays where you are because you unload and load in the same spot. So you won't have to worry about your wheelchair or your mobility equipment being moved around at all on 7 Doors Mine Train. Peter Pan's Flight, not accessible at all. We're not really sure why we asked about this. The setup of the ride is very similar, and you'll laugh, but I've ridden the Little Mermaid's Adventure or whatever it's called, Under the Sea Journey of Little Mermaid, and it's similar to that where they have an Haunted Mansion where they have like the carts that are mounted on like a moving belt, so to speak, and for whatever reason at Peter Pan's Flight they can't slow that belt down, and even the access is like like an old school turnstile, and there's no other access in, even though it seemed to me when we were there, if they just cut out a section of the like cement barrier there, you could easily roll in there with a wheelchair if you went past the turntable, or the turnstile. So we're not really sure why Peter Pan's Flight is not accessible or hasn't been updated to be accessible, but Disney, if you're watching and you want to reach out and let us know, drop something in the comments. The next one we'll talk about is Splash Mountain. So this is a water ride. It's like the big log flume ride. Again, it's another one you have to transfer out of your wheelchair. Again, though, there is the transfer board available. It's the same one that they use over at the Pirates of the Caribbean. Again, with it being like a floating boat kind of situation, it is a transfer down. This one is probably a little bit more difficult than Pirates of the Caribbean because the Pirates of the Caribbean boats are wide and it's like a bench seat. With Splash Mountain, you're in like a log, and it's skinnier, and the space to get into is a little bit trickier. So it might take you a little bit longer to kind of get your legs situated. But again, when I was there, they do have the transfer board available, the same one, and I've used that there too, just to kind of get my experience with that. So loading and unloading is in the same area. It's like a little bit further back, but they don't have to bring your chair or your equipment to a completely different area. So it's always right there waiting for you. A lot of these rides, like normally able-bodied would be, you load in on one side and then when you get back, you load out the other side and exit. Most of these rides with like the 7 Doors Mine Train and the Splash Mountain, you get in and out on the same side because then you're going out the exit, but you came in on the exit usually. So next one then is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, another roller coaster, another one you have to transfer out of your wheelchair for, and I believe, I can't remember for sure, but I'm almost positive this one has the fold-out door as well to make that transfer over nice and easy and smooth for you. Again, you get out on the same spot. And I just can't remember which train or which car in the train or whatever is the accessible one. It might be the one in the back again. Usually they do that just because it's you're not having other able bodies who are trying to get on and off the coaster, like tripping over or kicking your chair and stuff. So they put that on the back for your convenience too. So when you're getting on and off, you don't feel rushed or anything like that. And that's the other thing is don't ever feel bad. Like if it's taking you a little bit longer. Like you have just as much of a right to ride these rides and enjoy yourself as anybody else. So don't feel guilty about that. So. Next, Space Mountain. So Space Mountain is kind of the one roller coaster at Magic Kingdom that is the exception to the rule about what I was talking about with the easier transfer. Space Mountain sits lower on its tracks and it is a transfer down. And I haven't used a transfer board there before, and I can't remember if they've offered it. I don't think they have. So this one would be a little bit more of a difficult transfer. There's a couple different ways you can go about that. I haven't done it at Space Mountain specifically, but sometimes with these lower ones, it's easier to like get onto the ground first and then scoot a little bit and throw your legs into the thing, as opposed to trying to transfer right into the car or whatever, because that can be just a little bit easier. And that way, if your leg does get hooked up on something or whatever, you don't fall as far. So yeah, out of your wheelchair, no transfer board that I can remember. Probably one of the hardest self-transfers at Magic Kingdom, just because of how small it is and being lower away from the platform. But you do get on and off at the same spot, so there's no taking your chair away or for them to move it or lose it or whatever. So next, Jungle Cruise. This is another water ride or boat ride, however they call them. There's a couple of different ways you can ride this ride. They do allow you to transfer if you want, and you can do that. The boats do sit a little bit lower. So again, if you want to, I think this is one where I have gotten onto the ground, and then because it's a big boat and they got like benches like along the outside, then I transferred in and then scooted down the bench. But the nice thing about Jungle Cruise too is they do have a specific boat that if you want to stay in your chair, you can. So you request that one, and you might have to wait a minute or whatever, because I think there's only one, maybe two that have the lift in it. But that one's super easy because they just have like I think it's electric lift or something, but you roll right on it into your chair, and it comes forward and drops into the boat and swivels, and then you just lock your brakes, or if you don't have brakes, I think they've got tie downs and stuff, and then you just sit in the middle of the boat and enjoy the ride. I've done it both ways with Jungle Cruise, and it's been a lot of fun. You don't feel like you're missing out. You have a really good view of everything. You're not like, you probably have a better view sometimes of the people sitting in the benches because you're in the middle facing forward, and so like you can see both sides. You can see, around you if you twist. Whereas like sometimes when you're on those benches, you can't always, it's harder to turn around to see what's going on behind you on the ride. So that might be a plus if you decide to stay in your chair, or if you're a power chair user and you want to ride that ride, that would be a good one because you don't have to get out of your chair if you don't want to. On to the one I discussed earlier, Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid, because I love my wife. For this one, you can transfer into the shells, the seashells. So what it is like they're like half seashells, like clam shells, and they're on a moving walkway. And they'll ask you, they're really accommodating for this one, and they'll ask you how you want to do it. So they can, when you roll up, they can slow the track down, or they can stop it altogether if you need to. If you decide to ride in your wheelchair, I think they might stop the track just briefly. But like when they slow it down, and like I've transferred before, and when I do that, they just slow it down, and I've been able to transfer in plenty of time. So either they move the safety bar and you can transfer, and then they put it back and you can ride with somebody. Otherwise, they have a special seashell that like a ramp flips down out of the back, and then you push up it and sit right in your wheelchair in the shell. And I can't remember if that one if there's a place for a companion next to you. I think there is, yeah. You can ride with one companion, like in a seat next to you if you want to do that still. So that's Under the Sea. You get on and off at the same spot. So even if you decide to transfer out of your chair, they'll have it waiting for you when you get back. And same thing with offboarding, is they slow it down if you want. But yeah, on and off at the same spot. So and that leads me into my next one, which is a very similar setup, Haunted Mansion. So the buggies, as they call them, are similar shape to the seashells at the Little Mermaid. But for whatever reason over at Haunted Mansion, maybe because it's an older ride, they don't have one where you can roll into it in your chair. So this is a must transfer. Again, they'll slow down the track for you. And I say track, but don't think that it's like uneven and weird. It's like a rubber, like the moving walkways at the airport. It's very similar to that, except for the moving walkway is the part you sit on, and then the little things are like right next to it, and then you can push right up to them and transfer in. And I've been a couple of times, and I've had them stop the belt altogether, and I've had them just slow it down too. And then on and off at the same spot there for Haunted Mansion as well. So all of these ones too, Under the Sea, Haunted Mansion, if you decide to transfer and get into the buggy or whatever thing. And because like sometimes, you know, people with chairs, they might have limited trunk mobility or ability. There's never been a time, especially once they bring the safety bar back on any of these, where I felt with Haunted Mansion, Under the Sea, that I felt that like it was too tippy or I felt unsafe or anything like that. So they're solid and you feel comfortable in them. Obviously with the roller coasters, that's a little bit different of a situation. Space Mountain is the one you probably have the least amount of like support around you. Splash Mountain, Seven Doors Mine Train, and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, those you sit in and like you've got something behind you and on your sides and stuff, so those aren't too bad. Because I can't feel my legs and I have no like hamstring control, when you go up and down in those, like I can feel my legs float, but like with the safety bar on, I'm not going anywhere. My last one that we're going to talk about today from Magic Kingdom is It's a Small World. Again, this is a very similar boat, water-based one to Pirates of the Caribbean. However, it's kind of the best of both worlds. Oh gosh, that was a horrible joke. Between Jungle Cruise and Pirates of the Caribbean, because it's like an indoor one, but they do have a boat where you can roll onto it. This one isn't like Jungle Cruise where there's like a lift or anything. I've only been on Small World once because I cannot stand the music. You roll on and then you roll into the middle of the boat and you can sit with your family and friends because there's benches on both sides. So I really like that about it, that you're not feeling like you're not left out. You're kind of right in the mix. And they just have, I don't think, because it's so slow, I don't think they have like tie downs and but they do have this like thing they stick under your back wheels so you're not rolling around. And as far as I know, I think if you were in a power chair, they wouldn't have any issue with you driving the power chair onto it too. So that's Small World. And that's kind of it for the rides that I've ridden at Magic Kingdom. I know there's a lot of other ones there that are, you know, more geared towards the smaller kids, like all the Aladdin's carpet ride and the Tilt-A-Whirl teacup things and stuff. Oh, I have ridden the teacups. Yeah, you got to transfer for the teacups. Anyways, if you have any questions about other things at Magic Kingdom, put a comment down below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button and the like button. I'm going to be doing a review that's very similar to this for the other 3 parks, so I hope you come back and watch those as well.